Hello everyone, my name is Ain. I'm the Head of Department for Science at Marsiling Secondary School. I'll be sharing with you more about what are the science combinations offered in our school for all Sec 3 students next year and the relevant requirements. Here is the flow of my presentation outline, so feel free to forward the video to the content which is most relevant to you and your child. I will first present on 3E. We have three options. Option 1 would be for pure science. Option 2 and option 3 would be the combined science. So what's the difference between pure and combined science? The first difference is that for pure science, physics and chemistry are assessed as two separate subjects. In contrast, for the combined science, for example, physics chem, both physics and chemistry are assessed together as one subject in a combined science. Since the pure sciences are separate subjects, more curriculum time is allocated for the subjects due to the increased demand and rigor for the subjects. A second difference is that although pure science and combined science have theory and practical assessment, their weightings are different. For example, pure science will have an approximately of 5% more weighting in their practical component due to the increased depth of knowledge as well as the practical skills. The last difference is that the theory paper for pure science has a higher percentage of handling information and solving problem type of question, and there will be a lesser percentage of a recall type question when compared to a combined science. So let me give you an example to illustrate this. So here's an example of a science chemistry question. For a similar topic, here's a typical pure chemistry question. So as you can see, the question requires students to have a deeper understanding in applying multiple concepts to a question, which requires them to analyze and explain a given data. So due to the increased demand and rigor, we do have a criteria for students to take pure science. The two criteria are overall of Sec 2 science to be at least 70% and overall Sec 2 maths to be at least 65%. It is also advisable for our pure science students to take A-Math as well. Reason being, most junior colleges offer science-related subject combinations with A-Math as the prerequisite. I will move on to combined science. So these are the two options. Here are some examples of physics topics, examples of biology topics. So these are topics which students will find familiar because it has been briefly covered at lower sec science. So here's an example of a physics science question. As you can see, generally for a physics science question, it involves more use of formula and mathematical calculation. An example of a biology science question. Biology generally has more descriptive type of question which requires students to be able to express and organize their answers. I will now move on to Sec 3 MA. So we have two options for combined science. We have chemistry, physics, and chemistry, biology. So similar to 3E, chemistry is a compulsory subject. Here's the scheme of assessment. So students will need to take paper 1 and paper 2 for each science, meaning if let's say a student is taking physics chem, both physics and chem are assessed together as one subject. So do note that for NA level science, there is no practical assessment. So here are examples of physics topics, biology topics. I will now show you some examples to see what is a biology, what's a typical biology question, and what's a typical physics question. So I'm sure the question that you might be wondering would be, so which science combination to choose? So generally, for chemistry physics, it involves more use of formula and calculation, and students are required to see relationship among these quantities. For chemistry biology, it involves more memorization of scientific terms and accurate spelling of the terms. So it requires students to be rather strong in English language for the purpose of expressing and organizing answer. So for students who are generally weaker in language, we would strongly advise these students to choose chemistry, physics instead, as the students would be able to cope better with the demand of the subject. It is important to consider both attitude and aptitude when deciding on which science combination to choose. Students will also need to assess themselves in terms of the performance and confidence level in the science subject. They will also need to think about what they would like to take after they graduated from secondary school. So what's their aspiration, and look into what are the post-secondary education requirements. Let me briefly share with you polytechnic admission criteria. So as you can see, any science combination will enable your child to qualify for any courses, including science-related ones. So polytechnic will not specify which science will enable your child to qualify for a specific course. So here's the JC admission criteria as well. I will now move on to 3NT. So do take note, science will not be a compulsory subject for 3NT students. We do have a criteria for it. So students will need to achieve an overall of Sec 2 science to be at least 60%. So the syllabus is presented as 3 core modules, which include topics related to all the 3 sciences. So it covers physics, chemistry, and biology. Here is the scheme of assessment. So do note that there is also no practical assessment for NT-Science. However, NT-Science covers a range of key inquiry activities, meaning even though there is no practical assessment, students will have a lot of opportunities to carry out hands-on practical sessions in the science lab. Here are the science-related ITE courses. So if your child aspire or would like to take up a science-related ITE course, we would strongly encourage your child to choose NT-Science. Reason being, for such courses, there is a prerequisite, and science is always indicated as a prerequisite for them to be able to qualify for such courses in ITE. Thank you for listening. If you do have any questions, do feel free to contact us. Thank you.